media personalities, 2 people planning to run for president in 2024, and 2 people who have many, including Jewish people, terrified over the future of the US. After an impromptu meeting at Mar-a-Lago between Donald Trump, Kanye West, and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes, the former president is under heightened scrutiny. Whilst Trump has stated many times that he is a friend of the Jewish people, this meeting, plus recent comments questioning American Jews' loyalty to the US, has led some allies to turn their back on him. And it's not just Jews who have fallen off the Trump-supporting wagon, as the recent midterm results suggest that he is losing power within the Republican Party. And new flavour of the month, Ron DeSantis, is now the bookies' favourite to become the headliner on the Republican ticket. So, is this the end of Donald Trump? If he does run, whether as a Republican or not, will he split the party, making them unelectable? Is he a friend or a foe of the Jewish people? What's next for Donald Trump?
So let's get to it. What is next for Donald Trump? As always, we begin with a quick fire round of 30 seconds each and pick up the conversation right after. So Mark Schulman, please take the lead.
Maybe jail. That's the most likely outcome. But the reality is that he has support amongst 30% of the American people, which is very hard to move away from. I think if he he's starting to run. I think if he doesn't end up in jail, he'll most likely get the nomination, and he'll bring the Republican Party down with him if that's what happens.
Okay. Is there a third curtain here, or are these the 2 options? Ron Filipkowski, your take.
Well, the Republican Party has a Donald Trump problem. The problem is, right now, about 20% of the Republican Party, the individual voters, say that they are loyal to Donald Trump first. They are not loyal to the Republican Party. And in fact, they've said they wouldn't even necessarily vote for Republican candidates if Donald Trump wasn't the presidential nominee. So that's the problem for the Republican Party, is if Donald Trump goes, where do his voters go?
Big question. We will unpack it in a split second. Abraham Katzman, your thoughts?
I don't think it's quite the crisis that you're making it out to be. Yeah, it's an issue with every candidate that there are people who won't support him if he ends up getting the nomination. For various reasons, I think Donald Trump's day has passed. The media loves him still and will pay huge attention to everything that he does. But in terms of voters, I think his appeal is going to fade.
Okay, and on that note, let's feel free to interact from this point onwards. Is Trump empowering extremism, or is he merely just very much in tune with the Republican base, Ron Filipkowski?
Well, he's always courted extremist groups. He's always given them a wink and a nod, never condemns them. Never comes out and denounces them. In fact, this meeting, he claims that he didn't know who Nick Fuentes is, although he's pretty well known in the American political scene. But he claimed he didn't know who he was, but he didn't denounce him when he did find out who he was. So that's pretty telling.
Look, before the 2016 election, I wrote a piece that said no Jew should vote for Donald Trump. Not that I think Donald Trump himself was an anti-Semite, but I think he brings out anti-Semitism in America, because anything that brings out extremism brings out anti-Semitism. It's never good for the Jews when people go to the extremes, and Donald Trump brought out extremism both within the Republican base and other places in America. And I think he's been very bad for the Jews because of that. Whatever I wrote in 2016 has come true. And everything he's done since then, he now has to really work his base. Because if he has any chance of being nominated again, he has to have his base 1,000% behind him. And this plays well with his base. Let's be honest. It plays well. His base has a lot of anti-Semites amongst them, whether they speak that way or say that way, but they are, in fact, anti-Semites who are supporting him, a lot of them. And that's the reality. And he's brought these people out, and he's brought these people in power, and I think it's very dangerous. So I think it's going to continue, I'm afraid, as long as he's on the scene.
Mr. Katzman, I can see that you're not in full agreement with Mr. Schulman.
Not for the first time. I don't believe that we're at any kind of crisis point, particularly on the right. I think there is a big anti-Semitism problem in America and a growing anti-Semitism problem in America, but it's not in the people surrounding Donald Trump. It is every college campus, It is the Squad. It is overwhelmingly a left-wing phenomenon at this time.
It was the left who attacked the synagogue in Pittsburgh, right? It's the left who attacked the synagogue in Los Angeles. It's the left who's been doing it with violence, right?
Anything that would be going on the right. But I think that if you look at the orders of magnitude, and to pick this, what evidence is there that he knew who Nick Fuentes was? Why would he entertain Nick Fuentes of all people? This whole thing looks like a setup by Nick Fuentes, by Milo Yiannopoulos. I mean, the fact that they want some of Kanye West's money, and therefore they are behind him and his candidacy, and that at least was the pretext under which they were operating. But this white supremacist is supporting Kanye West for president, and he's working with a gay half-Jew, and not just any gay. I mean, out there gay. Milo Yiannopoulos, you know who he is. There's something so cynical about this. And to paint it as if there was some intent by Donald Trump, who has zero. I mean, where is the anti-Semitism in Donald Trump? I can point you to an awful lot of files.
He's a fool. That's why. It's not a question of he's not an anti-Semite. He brings out anti-Semites. He does foolish things. He did foolish things as president. He was the worst president in American history since the Civil War, and not by intent. He just didn't know what he was doing. This is another example of him not knowing what he's doing. I didn't know this guy.
But the question, gentlemen, is not necessarily if Donald Trump is an anti-Semite or not. The question is whether anti-Semitism is becoming politically beneficial in the U.S. nowadays.
It's not negative like it once was. Immediately after the Holocaust, anti-Semitism more or less disappeared in the United States. People, before the Holocaust, there was a lot of anti-Semitism. That's one of the reasons why the American gates were closed. But after the Holocaust, people saw what happened in the Holocaust, and they said, wait a second, if this is what anti-Semitism brings, I don't want any part of it. But the Holocaust has faded in American memories. New things have come up, and now it's once again okay to be anti-Semitic. Yes, on the left, and yes, very much on the right. Jews will not replace us is a sign from the right. Anti-Zionism is a big problem on the far left. These are big problems, but there's more anti-Semitism than ever in the United States. It doesn't hurt many candidates. Let's put it that way.
Doesn't hurt. It might be an understatement. Ron Filipkowski, I'm asking again, is it becoming politically beneficial?
There's a significant element in the American political right that believes in a globalist conspiracy, that believes that there are dark forces behind the scenes that are really control the institutions in the government. They believe that Ron Klain, who's the chief of staff, who is Jewish, is really running the White House. They believe that Randy Weingarten, the president of the teachers union, is really controlling the school system. They believe that George Soros, who is Jewish, is controlling the criminal justice system behind the scenes. This is the kind of thing that Donald Trump enables, is for these people to believe what they believe. That's where the anti-Semitism is. And Donald Trump believes that strong support for Israel will inoculate him against anti-Semitism accusations, when in fact American Jews care about a whole lot of other things besides Israel.
I also think the Soros is very important to bring that up, because the right side of the Republican Party has been using the Soros name for every evil that has taken place in the United States. Now, I'm not a great Soros supporter, but he is not responsible for the 100,000 things that the far right of the Republican Party has been claiming he's been responsible for. Every evil in America is George Soros. And that started from the Hungarians, who used him as a symbol. So,
well, Mr. Katzman, I'm not sure if you're amused or a bit crossed, so help me read your mind.
Okay. I'd say a few things. If you really think that there's such political appeal to anti-Semitism on the right, show me the candidate who's going to prey on it. Show me the candidate who's going to use it. The Mike Pompeos, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis. Seriously? Where is it? I can show you among the people on the left where there is, I would say,
Who's Marjorie Greene Taylor? Who is she exactly? Is she going to have no power in the next Congress? I forgot about that. She's not running for president, but she's going to have a tremendous amount of power in the Republican side of the Congress.
Please don't talk over me when I'm talking.
We encourage interaction, but obviously, Mr. Katzman, conclude your remarks, of course. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, look, you've got the squad on the left keeps on getting bigger and bigger every year. We just elected a couple of others, Summer Lee, to go along with, you have Cori Bush complaining that the problems in her district are because of money that's diverted to Israel aid. And really? And you think that the problem is one nut job on the right, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I don't believe is, and there's no anti-Semitism in her policy. She's got wacky ideas, no question about
it. Yes, but...
Well, Marjorie Greene was the keynote speaker at Nick Fuentes' last national organization.
My point.
She was the keynote speaker.
They are on the fringe. Nobody, I don't know why you think everybody on the right is following these people. Most people barely know who Nick Fuentes is.
But
includes me.
Well, again, on that note, let's try and take a look at.
They know now. Thanks to Donald Trump, they know who he is now.
That's for certain. But is the U.S. becoming unsafe for Jews? Let it be from the left side, from the right side. Are Jews no longer safe in the U.S.?
It would seem to be going in that direction. There's no question about that. We've had so many different cases of Jews who are wearing a kippah being attacked, of various things taking place that have not taken place in the United States in such a long time. Let's put it that way. My sense in talking to my family who was in the States is there's a fear. There's a real fear at this point that hasn't existed in such a long time. And I think it's real. And statistics certainly follow up with 75% of the attacks against ethnic groups being against Jews in the United States, according to the FBI. So clearly there's a real reason for the fear.
And I add, I think I don't disagree. And I think that we have no idea how bad it is on most college campuses. I was talking to somebody recently who had graduated from George Washington University, which has a significant Jewish presence. And I was asking her what it is like to be Jewish there in terms of how she is received. And she said it's worse than being conservative.
Wow.
And if you know what that means at a college campus, that's bad.
And on that note, who would have thought anti-Semitism is trending again? We will be taking a very short break, but when we get back, we broaden our discussion to the fate of the Republican Party altogether. Mark Schulman, Ron Filipkowski, and Abraham Katzman, you're staying with us. A few minutes break, and we're back with the rest of the summit. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the summit. Still with us, Ron Filipkowski, Abraham Katzman, and Mark Schulman. Thank you, gentlemen, so very much for staying with us. We're also staying on topic. But before we get back to the debate, let's take a listen to some of the remarks of the man who plans to give Trump a run for his money, Ron DeSantis.
Thank you. Well, one of the things I've learned in this job is when you're leading, when you're getting things done, you take incoming fire. That's just the nature of it. I roll out of bed in the morning. I've got corporate media outlets that have a spasm, just the fact that I'm getting up in the morning, and it's constantly attacking. And this is just what's happened. I don't think any governor got attacked more, particularly by corporate media, than me over my 4-year term. And yet, I think what you learn is all that's just noise. And really what matters is, are you leading? Are you getting in front of issues? Are you delivering results for people? And are you standing up for folks? And if you do that, then none of that stuff matters. And that's what we've done. We focused on results and leadership. And, at the end of the day, I would just tell people to go check out the scoreboard from last Tuesday night.
And let's get to it. Is Trump, whether intentionally or not, is breaking the Republican Party apart? Another quick fire round of 30 seconds each before we dive back into the conversation. Ron Filipkowski, please take the lead.
Well, here's the problem. Donald Trump would rather burn the whole house down and be king of the ashes than to stand by and watch somebody else prosper. There is no way. It is inconceivable to anyone who knows Donald Trump to have a Ron DeSantis or anyone else think about them securing the Republican nomination and Donald Trump supporting that person if that person defeats him. That is not possible.
Abraham Katzman, make it or break it for Trump?
Of course it's possible. In fact, I think it's probable. I think what we're going to end up with, in fact, is a candidate, since the party is certainly divided between pro-Trump people and, let's just say, well, we'll call them anti-Trump people. Ultimately, the nominee is probably going to be somebody with appeal to both sides. DeSantis is one of those people. I would say so is Mike Pompeo. There are probably a couple of others, and I don't see how President Trump is going to burn anything down. He might not be happy, but I think at the end of the day, he believes in America, as corny as that sounds.
Yeah. Well, pro-Trump, anti-Trump, ring some bells, Mark Schulman?
Well, two things. First, on what he just said, I think Donald Trump believes in Donald Trump before he believes in anything else. But the real problem that Republicans have is they're divided not only in question of Trump and no Trump, but what sort of party do they want? They're divided by Trump between the populist part of the party, the people who believe in absolutely no immigration, who believe in America first, isolationism, and all the things that go with populism, and the traditional Republican values of that talk about internationalism and talk about America's role in the world and believe in legal immigration and other things. And I think the Republican Party first has to figure out who it is, and that's going to be a hard thing for it to decide.
So if we're looking at DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Mike Pompeo, all those names that you've mentioned, gentlemen, are we going to see this revival of a more conservative stream of republicanism?
If it can survive Trump, the answer is yes.
Yeah, I think Ron DeSantis is trying to get to the right of Trump somehow. That's a little difficult to do, but that he's trying to do that. The other people that you mentioned are carving out different constituencies inside the Republican Party, such as evangelicals. They think that they can peel them away from Trump, but Ron DeSantis seems like the only one who could possibly unite the party.
Abraham Katzman, yeah.
Yeah, I disagree, and I disagree with that characterization. It's actually not hard at all to get to the right of Trump on an awful lot of issues, especially anything dealing with the size of the government. Trump was not a small government conservative. In that sense, he was very much an aberration in terms of where he stood in the party. And in all likelihood, I mean, if you take a look, the Pences and the DeSantises and these types of people are very much in the old style mold of being. I mean, they're internationalists certainly, but they are conservative. Small government, big liberty.
But the question becomes, is there a place with the supporter in the Republican Party? There are enough supporters who are going to come out and vote for someone who's not a populist. I mean, Trump succeeded to a large extent because of his populist views. He struck a nerve in America, for good or for bad. The populist views against immigration, against entanglement overseas, all of these things struck a good nerve within part of the Republican Party. If the conservative, quote-unquote, Republicans take over again, will these people even come out to vote? And if they don't come out to vote, the Republican Party will never get a majority. So it's a difficult dilemma, I think, for the Republicans at this point.
But what are we going to see in the 2 years left for campaigning? You know, you start strong and then you make it even stronger. If this is, again, the first month of campaigning, this anti-Semitic summit in Mar-a-Lago, where are we going from here?
Well, you know, somebody mentioned an indictment. You know, I think that could be coming in the summer. And Donald Trump has already said that even if he's indicted, does not mean he's going to drop out of the race. So that presents an interesting problem to the Republican Party is, are they going to move forward with a nominee that's under criminal indictment and could possibly be going to prison? That's an interesting problem for them as well.
I think the American justice system moves more quickly than the Israeli justice system, so there's a chance something could actually happen before the elections. If this was Israel, it wouldn't happen for another 6 years. So,
the sixth round of elections. Abraham Katzman?
Yeah, I think that we're making a mistake if we try to extrapolate anything from where we are now. Look a couple of years ago. How did COVID-19 came out of nowhere? And look at what that did to the political map. There are going to be events here. It could be China. It could be Iran. It could be Ukraine. It could be a crashing U.S. economy. Who knows? There are so many things, so many balls in the air at this point And that is going to end up driving the political agenda.
But Mr. Katzman, who do you think the Democrats would prefer or want on their Republican ticket? Ron DeSantis?
I don't know. Part of their problem is...
Don't you think that they would prefer Donald Trump to an extent?
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, they would definitely prefer Donald Trump. They probably preferred Donald Trump in 2016, thinking that he would be the easiest candidate to beat. And they might be right, but they weren't last time. He was elected once. It's not impossible he could be elected again.
No, not impossible. Ron
I think that if Trump runs, then Biden is most likely to run again. If it's DeSantis, then there's going to be a younger Democrat taking over the Democratic ticket, in my opinion.
I think you're on to something. But if I could just get in here, I think age is going to be a problem for Donald Trump because of Joe Biden. I think people do not want to elect a president who's going to be 78 years old on election day. And that really will favor somebody like DeSantis.
Ron?
I agree.
Yeah, I think age is an issue for both of them, and I do think that that the Democrats think that Donald Trump is the easiest person to beat. Yes, they thought that in 2016 as well, but a lot of things have happened since then. January 6th happened. The election denier stuff is I think killing Donald Trump with independent voters right now. It certainly killed his endorsed candidates who ran on the 2020 election fraud issue. So there's been a lot. He's acquired a significant amount more baggage since 2016. Also, two impeachments.
I think one can argue how good a president he was, and that's an argument that obviously we could have. But I think everyone will agree he's had one of the worst post-presidencies of any modern president. Let's put it that way. He has not helped himself in his post-presidency period, while most presidents try to rehabilitate themselves, take a statesman role, or all sorts of things. He's done none of those things.
Abraham Katzman, in the 20 seconds we have left, final remarks?
Look, the future is very hard to predict.
Well,
he's going to be he's going to be a factor. He's going to get a lot of attention because the media loves paying attention to him, as we are now.
Well,
that doesn't mean he's.
That's for certain, and luckily for us, because of this attention, we will be speaking to all of you again soon, hopefully. Abraham Katzman, Ron Filipkowski, and Mark Schulman, thank you very much for your time and insight, gentlemen.